Discover the incredible truth, how a whisper on a rainy night transformed their lives forever. Laura, a 32-year-old high school teacher in the small town of Maplewood, Ohio, sat alone in her dimly lit apartment as the rain battered against the window, a dull but rhythmic melody that almost soothed her frayed nerves. She wrapped her hands around a warm mug of tea, the steam curling up to meet her face, sending a wave of nostalgia through her. Once, she envisioned herself a beacon for her students, but that dream had all but evaporated in the face of mounting expectations. Her father's abrupt departure left her, a single mother named Angela, her younger brother Jake, and her sister Lila in emotional and financial disarray. The burden rested heavily upon her, a reality she wore like an immovable cloak. As she leaned back, a conversation slipped through the thin walls of her modest home. It was Mr. Thompson, her elderly neighbor, speaking to a stranger. The stranger's voice slithered through the air like a snake, sending shivers down her spine. She strained to listen. Words emerged, haunting and unfamiliar. Her father was not merely a man who had left but was someone extraordinary, a brilliant inventor whose groundbreaking patents had been stolen. Laura's heart raced as the implication settled in her mind. The mere idea of reclaiming her family's honor sent adrenaline surging through her veins. Could there be a way to turn the tide? With tentative resolve, she dove deeper into her father's hidden past. What had been an abstract concept began crystallizing into a mission. She sought advice from Professor Martin, a mentor from the nearby university who saw potential in her that she barely recognized. Their late-night discussions unfolded at local coffee shops, where he challenged her perceptions and subtly pushed her towards confronting the harsh realities of corporate greed. Through him, she glimpsed a path forward, yet as the road ahead materialized, layers of fear wrapped tighter around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days later, with a prestigious conference looming on the horizon, Laura grappled with her insecurities. The harsh truth of her family's financial strain weighed heavily on her shoulders. Each moment spent preparing felt like a double-edged sword, where her ambition collided with her loyalty to family. Would she betray her mother's sacrifices to pursue her father's legacy? As she stood backstage, poised to unveil her findings, an almost tangible tremor echoed through the air. The crowd of faces blurred before her, each one a reflection of her anxieties. And then she recalled the whispers from that fateful rainy night. The melody haunting her now felt like a requiem. A question lingered in the depths of her mind: could reclaiming her father's dreams illuminate her path or engulf her in darkness? Behind her, the curtain felt heavy, and Laura took a deep breath, teetering on the precipice of choice. Would she rise, or would she drown beneath the swell of doubt? The moment felt suspended in time as Laura peered into the sea of expectant faces. There was a weight in her chest, an unsettling mix of fear and resolve as she grasped the podium, her heart drumming against her ribcage. This was not merely an opportunity, it felt like a reckoning, a chance to reclaim her father's lost legacy and, in turn, discover her own. As she began to speak, the first few sentences flowed out as if they had been rehearsed 1,000 times. Her voice wavered, however, when she transitioned from the prepared outline into the personal anecdotes that lined the fabric of her family history. With each word, she wove a narrative that transcended academic theory, transforming statistics and data into a compelling story of innovation and loss. The room responded, watching closely, and for an instant, Laura felt their attention like a beckoning light. But the warmth fled quickly. Images of her family's struggle dominated her thoughts, chaining her to self-doubt. Would they even understand? Would they appreciate the visionary that her father had been, or were they simply judging her abilities as a speaker? This internal tumult ignited something deep within her. Perhaps addressing her fears was as essential as framing her argument. Taking a quick, steadying breath, she remembered the late-night talks with Professor Martin, where the weight of discussable morality and corporate betrayals loomed large. Caught between moments of brilliance and the indignity of corporate greed, Laura realized there was no path forward without embracing this conflict. She dismissed the anxiety that clawed at her and forged ahead, diving deeper into a discussion of her father's inventions and the injustices surrounding him. With every word, she honored not only his memory but also her own potential. The audience's response began to shift, she could sense their engagement growing. Conversations, once muted, sparked in the crowd as she recounted the clandestine meetings and the intricate web of theft she aimed to unravel. The stories didn't just illustrate her father's intellect but also resonated deeply with her own journey. The thought sparked her determination. She was not just fighting for someone who was once lost but reclaiming her own narrative. However, just as she reached the apex of her presentation, a familiar face caught her eye, a man she recognized from her childhood. The bitterness radiated off him like dark clouds, a former associate of her father's, implicated in the betrayal. He was here, listening with an almost predatory intensity, and in that moment, her breath caught. The stakes intensified. She was no longer just a daughter reclaiming a legacy, she was on the brink of confrontation. Laura's pulse quickened. The tentative freedom she had tasted was now tinged with complexity. She had the microphone, and in her grasp was not merely a presentation but a weapon. Would she call him out publicly, exposing his past actions and challenging the carefully curated facade of his success? Or would she maintain decorum and risk losing the power she had just begun to harness? The internal struggle became apparent in her voice. Fractured yet resolute, it echoed in the room. This was more than a presentation, it was a choice. Should she prioritize solidarity against the juggernaut of corporate greed or recognize the deeper ties of family loyalty? She realized that this pivotal moment required more than facts, it demanded courage. The audience leaned in, an unspoken anticipation hanging in the air. What would she decide? As she stared down her father's foe, a surge of clarity coursed through her, a revelation that ignited not just her voice but her spirit. The hard path towards her father's justice lay ahead, and with it, her own unwavering resolve. With the weight of her decision palpable, Laura prepared to speak again, but she felt the edges of uncertainty clawing back. There was one thing she knew with profound certainty: the time had come to confront her father's legacy and her own destiny, but at what cost could she realize it? Would she emerge victorious or irrevocably altered? The moment of truth loomed larger than ever. As Laura stood at the podium, her eyes locked onto the man who had once been a trusted ally to her father, a storm of emotions swirled within her. The weight of past choices seemed to press against her chest, and the decision before her felt more vital than any academic argument. "Thank you all for your attention," she managed to say, her voice stronger now. "But we must face the truth, honesty can often be the hardest path to tread." With those words, she forged ahead into the heart of her obliterated illusions about her father's legacy, fueled by a newly ignited sense of purpose. The familiar face in the crowd didn't flinch. Did he believe she would shy away from calling him out in front of others? A fire surged in her, pushing her forward. My father wasn't just a brilliant inventor. He was a man betrayed by those who he considered family. It is time for clarity. The audience shifted, their collective breath caught in the air. Thoughts raced in Laura's mind, fear mingling with a keen sense of empowerment. She had spent years tiptoeing around the truths of her father's struggles, hesitating to accept the reality around their downfall. Now here she was, poised to put them on display for scrutiny. As memories flooded back, she could picture the late nights, her father gesturing passionately over blueprints, his eyes as bright as the ideas flowing from his mind. He had been a dreamer who believed in innovation. He had wanted a better world. But as she looked at the man who had helped dismantle that dream, she also felt a deep-seated anger swelling. "I am reclaiming not just my father's legacy but my own," she declared, her voice gaining strength with each sentence. "For too long, I allowed the whispers of doubt, your whispers, to overshadow my voice. I refuse to remain a passive player in a narrative written by those who act only for their interests." Gasps rippled through the audience as she turned her full attention to her father's adversary. "You herald your success, yet beneath it lies a foundation built on deceit. You think you've escaped the consequences, but the truth doesn't fade. It festers. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she felt the defiance stir inside her. A revelation struck her then. It was no longer just about confronting her father's betrayals but claiming her own voice amidst the chaos. She was standing there not just as a tarnished legacy, but as a fierce contender ready to shepherd her father's ideals into the light. Behind her resolute facade, another layer unfurled, a raw vulnerability. I welcome scrutiny, not just because of my father's inventions, but because I am prepared to defend their relevance against those who would see them erased. With each word, she sensed the currents shifting, her confidence surging. The fear that had clung to her like a shadow began to lose its grip. This encounter was more than an assertion of her father's worth. It was the formation of her own identity, not defined by the past but molded through the truest version of herself. As she concluded her poignant plea, a mixture of apprehension and exhilaration washed over her. Laura had stepped beyond the threshold of fear into determination, but a gnawing doubt remained. Her heart raced at the thought of the implications. What sorts of retaliation, backlash, or repercussions would her words provoke from those who thrived in dishonor? Just then, the familiar face shifted slightly, a flicker of recognition mixed with something unreadable. But before Laura could decipher it, he met her gaze with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. The decision had been made, but the battle was far from over. What stakes awaited her in the wake of her newfound courage? As the crowd absorbed her words, she realized she had ignited something larger than her father's legacy. She had set the stage for her own revolution. With confidence straddling the edge of recklessness, Laura took a deep breath. The next chapter wouldn't just be about unveiling hidden truths, but about consuming them, reshaping them into her vision of justice. She steeled herself. For what lay ahead? Would she be ready to confront the consequences of her revelations, or would they consume her entirely? A hush fell across the room, a tense silence electrified by Laura's proclamation. As she stepped down from the podium, she felt a mixture of strength and vulnerability coursing through her. The exhilaration of confronting her father's betrayer was overshadowed by the realization that her next steps were even more crucial than the first bold move she had made. She navigated through the crowd, eyes glued to the knot of attendees who had once viewed her as a mere extension of her father's shadow. Now, they were witnesses to her own awakening. As she approached the exit, whispers followed her like echoes of doubt. They questioned her resolve, her intentions, as if trying to tie her back to the safety of silence she had once inhabited. Laura, a voice called from behind. It was David, the familiar face, her father's former confidant. He stepped forward, his expression inscrutable, yet tinged with something not quite anger, perhaps regret. "What do you want?" She shot back, cutting through the lingering tension. The confrontation was palpable between them, the air thick with unresolved history. "Can we speak?" he asked, sincerity lacing his words. "Speak? After everything you've done?" She felt the sharpness of indignation rise again, ready to defend herself from further betrayal. "Just give me a moment," he insisted, his gaze steady. She could see the weight he carried, and something in her softened. "Fine," she relented, moving to a quieter corner. A part of her wondered if she was making a mistake, revealing the still vulnerable aspects of her heart. "The truth is, Laura, I never meant to betray your father," he started, but she held up her hand. "This isn't about you, David. You can't pretend I'm here to hear apologies when all of this," she waved her hands in frustration, "all of this is just the result of personal ambitions that came at the expense of my father's dreams." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I know what it looks like from the outside, but I was a pawn as much as he was. I respected your father more than you'll ever know. Yet here you stand," she challenged, crossing her arms, stubbornly resisting the pull of a supposed shared understanding. "What if I told you I still believe in his vision? That I can help you rebuild it?" The suggestion hung between them like a tangled thread. "Help me?" She scoffed, but inwardly, a spark ignited. Perhaps she could wield this connection as leverage. "Think about it. You're right to call out the lies, but you can't take them on alone. The forces behind your father's downfall are still lurking, and they won't give you a second chance. A shiver ran through her. The reality he painted sparked a feeling of unease. What are you suggesting? That I accept the help of someone who stood by while my father crumbled? I don't expect you to trust me, but you need allies, he replied, regret threading through his tone. The vulnerability she had fought so hard to fight back threatened to surface again. In that moment, she recognized the depth of her isolation. If she truly wanted to reclaim her father's legacy, she couldn't afford to cut herself off completely. I need time to think, she said reluctantly, pacing this precarious line between acceptance and defiance. Authenticity pressed against her like a weight, honesty had its costs, and so did elevation into leadership. Yet beneath the turmoil lay a glimmer of potential. The battle would require more than just the fire of confrontation, it would necessitate strategy, alliances, and a delicate dance with figures she'd once considered foes. As she walked away from David, her mind raced with implications and calculations. Was she truly prepared to intertwine her ambitions with someone entrenched in shadows? And what would that mean for her identity in this pivotal struggle for her father's legacy? The uncertainty gnawed at her. When would the moment arrive to face those perilous decisions? There was still friction, an unseen end waiting ahead. What connections would she forge, and more crucially, could she trust herself amidst the blend of old wounds and new opportunities? The path to her resolution was fraught with new encounters and deeper confrontations. Laura could feel it in her bones. A storm was brewing. The next challenge was not just to reclaim a name, but to discern the raw truths hidden within every painful alliance she must forge. Would she emerge from this reckoning transformed, or would the seduction of past betrayals pull her further into darkness? The rain pattered against the window, a rhythmic reminder of the chaos in her life. Laura sat alone in her father's office, the place steeped in memories, both warm and bitter. It had been 2 days since her confrontation with David, and still, the echo of their words reverberated in her mind. Each whisper of the wind outside seemed to ignite a dilemma within her: trust him and risk more betrayal, or turn her back on a potential ally in this turbulent battle for her father's legacy. As she leaned back in the creaking leather chair, she felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her. Glancing around the office, she saw remnants of her father's perseverance: a vision board littered with sketches, plans, and ideas he had cultivated throughout his life. An unsettling thought crossed her mind. Was she ready to uphold the lineage beyond the dreams her father had for her, or merely become a pawn in a resurrected game of deceit? Her stomach tightened at the realization that she had a unique opportunity to carve out a new identity, one built on strength and strategic collaboration rather than mere reaction. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her, awakening something dormant within. It was time to break free from the shadow of her father's past and sculpt her future. Pulling out a notebook, she started jotting down ideas, strategies, and potential allies. With each pen stroke, a clearer picture emerged. She had always been a creative thinker, developing business concepts that danced outside traditional boundaries. What if she implemented the same ingenuity her father had used, but with the wisdom of her own experience? If she could leverage David's knowledge of the industry and incorporate her fresh perspective, perhaps she could breathe life into her father's vision without becoming ensnared in its past failures. Her thoughts shifted to the meeting with David and the small flicker of understanding that had sparked between them. Could he be the bridge she needed to connect the old to the new? Hesitation drew a line in the sand. She didn't want to appear desperate. But perhaps a partnership could be negotiated, an outcome designed on her terms, not his. With each pulse of determination, her vision expanded, and the initial anger she felt towards him seemed less relevant. She closed the notebook, a plan forming in her mind. Tomorrow, she'd meet David again and lay out her terms. She wouldn't come to him with a heart full of fear or distrust. Instead, she would come as an equal, wielding her ambitions with grace and authority. Yet she would have to guard her heart, aware that shadows still lingered, veiling truths she had yet to unveil. The rain intensified, drumming harder against the panes. Outside, the world seemed alive with energy contrasting her stillness. As she looked out, she spotted a figure standing beneath a street lamp, deep in conversation on the phone, their silhouette blurred by the storm. The image sparked a sense of urgency in her. This was no longer just about reclaiming an inheritance or legacy, it was about redefining her existence amidst chaotic forces. Suddenly, resolving to proceed with caution yet confidence seemed paramount, but the unsettling vibration of tension filled the room like the scent of the rain, unpredictable and volatile. The next day would demand clarity and poise. She would need to discern whether trust could be built upon the foundations of past mistakes. Just as she prepared to leave, a sudden intuition gripped her, a sense that an unexpected revelation awaited her. Perhaps the figure in the rain was a harbinger of the next chapter in her journey, someone or something that would test her resolve. Would she have the courage to confront not only her companions in discord but also the truths that lay hidden within herself? She took a deep breath, ready to engage with whatever the universe aimed to present next. As she stepped out into the rain, every drop a reminder of the challenges ahead, Laura knew one thing: the time had come to face both the past and the possibilities of an uncertain future. What awaited her on this daring path could either break her down or elevate her beyond her wildest expectations. But which would it be? The weight of the impending meeting pressed on Laura's shoulders as she navigated the slick sidewalks, her mind racing with the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. The patter of rain intensified, yet it felt like a cleansing ritual, each drop refreshing her resolve. She could feel the anticipation tightening in her chest, a dual sensation of excitement and fear, each pushing her in differing directions. Would she push through the barriers, or would she retreat back to the familiarity of safety? The coffee shop where she had agreed to meet David seemed alive, an oasis filled with warmth and laughter, a stark contrast to the tempest outside. As she stepped inside, the rich aroma of roasted beans wrapped around her like a comforting cloak. She spotted David seated at a corner table, his brow furrowed in concentration as he reviewed notes on his phone. A rush of hesitation washed over her. What if this encounter was a grave mistake? Her resolve teetered as self-doubt crept in. Could she truly negotiate her future with someone who had previously betrayed her trust? But then she remembered the vision board in her father's office, a testament to dreams nurtured with painstaking effort. Laura. David looked up, a hint of relief washing away the tension in his eyes. "Hi, David," Laura replied, steadying her breath. She walked to the table, forcing herself to maintain eye contact, a silent declaration that she wouldn't be intimidated. "Thanks for coming," he said, motioning for her to sit. As she lowered herself into the chair, memories of their confrontational exchanges flashed through her mind. This was unfamiliar territory, and a slight tremor traced her fingertips as they brushed over her notebook, the contents of which she had meticulously prepared the night before. "I wanted to talk about the business," Laura started, her voice a careful mixture of firmness and vulnerability. David leaned forward, his expression shifting from casual interest to earnest. "You're not here to bring me more anger, are you? I'd prefer not to repeat our last conversation." "No, I'm not. I've thought a lot about this," Laura replied, steeling herself. "My father had visions that could extend beyond what he created. I believe we can build on that legacy together. But I need to know where you stand." The atmosphere crackled with tension as they navigated the waters of their shared history. "Do you trust me?" David asked, a challenge lurking beneath his question. "I don't yet. But I want to. I want to be your pawn, and I'll need accountability, an understanding that we're pursuing the same goals," she articulated, feeling the pulse of determination in her veins. "No more secrets. No more games." He nodded, a slow acknowledgement that represented a fragile truce. "Agreed. Let us rewrite the rules, then." They transitioned from delicate negotiation to dynamic collaboration. As they laid out strategies, the contours of synergy began to emerge, her creative flair sparking an unexpected resonance within David's disciplined approach. However, unease constantly gnawed at her. Would this partnership truly withstand the pressure of their entwined past? She couldn't ignore the intrusion of fear whenever she considered David's motivations, which lingered like an uninvited shadow at the periphery of their growing alliance. As the rain subsided outside, a metaphor for their brewing potential, Laura felt determined to dive deeper into this newfound collaboration. Perhaps this was her opportunity to extract lessons from the disappointment of betrayal, to emerge stronger and more resilient, but just as they agreed on the next steps, a figure near the entrance caught Laura's attention, a young woman with a familiar face, eyes alive with a burning urgency. The stranger's gaze fixated on Laura, a flicker of recognition dawning between them. "Laura? We need to talk," she said, a strained intensity coloring her voice. Laura's heart raced. The path ahead now felt riddled with complexity, a sudden intrusion of chaos threatening the fragile partnership she'd started to forge. Who was this woman? What urgent message could she possibly deliver? Steeling herself, Laura knew she needed to confront whatever truth this unexpected reunion brought with it. Would facing it lead her to enlightenment or push her further into the abyss of doubt? A familiar uncertainty washed over Laura as she stared into the eyes of the woman who had just interrupted her fragile truce with David. The urgency in the stranger's voice turned each heartbeat into a hammering question. "Who are you?" Laura asked, striving to project composure, yet her palms felt clammy, the urge to retreat clawing at her insides. "I'm Emma. We have unfinished business," the woman replied, glancing warily at David, who had gone still at the table beside her. "Unfinished business?" Laura echoed, a thousand scenarios of confrontation flooding her mind. The air around them thickened, charged with the echo of unresolved conflicts and buried truths. "Please, let us go somewhere private," Emma urged, her voice barely a whisper amidst the café's ambient noise. There was a desperation in her eyes that intrigued and unsettled Laura in equal measure. She hesitated, the echoes of her burgeoning partnership with David swirling in her thoughts. This was not the moment she had envisioned. The fresh start she had sought was being hijacked by someone she barely knew. But the urge to know the truth was even stronger than her fear of disruption. "I'll be right back," Laura told David, who raised an eyebrow, an unspoken question hanging in the air between them. Laura followed Emma outside, the remnants of rain clinging to the street, the world appearing both darker and more vivid in its aftermath. "What's this about?" she demanded, trying to maintain control of the conversation. "I know about the documents," Emma replied, her breath quickening. "I saw them before they disappeared. There is something you need to understand, something that changes everything." Every instinct in Laura screamed for caution, but curiosity wrestled with her reasoning. "What are you talking about?" Emma took a deep breath, her eyes flickering as if weighing the gravity of her words. "Your father's vision wasn't just business. He was involved in something bigger, something that could define you, if you choose to follow that path." The light around them dimmed as doubt settled in. "Why should I believe you?" "You're just a stranger," she shot back, an instinctual defense fortifying her resolve. Emma stepped closer, her urgency palpable. "Because I was part of it too. I worked with your father before he passed. He wanted you to be ready for this, to inherit his legacy, not just the company." The walls Laura had built around her heart began to crack. The concept of her father and the hidden aspects of his dream stirred something deep within her, a neglected ambition that had been buried under the weight of betrayal and loss. "What do you know?" Laura pressed, wrestling with her skepticism and the burgeoning spark of hope. Emma glanced around before replying, "There are plans and people who want to exploit his ideas for profit. I've seen it. But your father's real vision was about integration, about building something that could empower others, real impact beyond mere profit." The words echoed in Laura's mind. Could it be possible? Could there still be a chance to reclaim her father's integrity? The weight of Emma's revelation reverberated through her. "So what do you want from me?" "To help you realize that potential," Emma urged, frustration mingling with the urgency in her voice. "You can't do this alone. This partnership with David needs to be based on transparency. You need to know what you're up against." Tension filled the air as Laura wrestled with her swirling thoughts. Trust remained an elusive notion. Yet the fire ignited within her, fueled by the whisper of possibility. Was this the pivotal moment she had been preparing for? Then, her eyes darted back to the café, where David remained seated, watching the door, a storm of emotions brewing beneath his calm exterior. "Let me think about it," Laura finally said, the weight of her words heavy with consequence. "Time is not on our side," Emma warned, the urgency of her mission humming in her tone as she began to step back. With a final glimpse at the woman who had brought this unexpected revelation, Laura turned toward David, the complexities of her past, present, and future coalescing in a single breath. The impending choice loomed like the storm still lingering above, the horizon uncertain and alive with promise. What lay ahead could redefine everything she thought she knew. Would she embrace this hidden path, or would she risk falling back into the shadows of doubt that had haunted her? As she crossed the threshold back into the coffee shop, a new resolve settled within her, and she realized the true negotiation had only just begun. Laura stepped back into the cafe, her heart pounding, a storm of possibilities swirling in her mind. David looked up, an inquisitive gaze piercing through the haze of her turmoil. She could sense the tension coursing between them, thick and palpable. His presence was both a comfort and a reminder of the partnership she was cautiously rebuilding, and the past she struggled to forgive. "Everything okay?" David asked, the warmth in his voice mingled with a genuine concern that made Laura's insides twist. She hesitated, the urge to confide battling her instinct to protect her newfound clarity. "Yeah, it's fine. Just a bit of a diversion," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. As she settled back into her seat, she replayed Emma's words in her mind. Could her father's legacy truly lead her to something meaningful? The notion of empowerment stirred an unfamiliar determination within her, challenging her usual patterns of self-doubt. In the past, she had often prioritized safety over the unknown, but now, the potential for transformation dangled enticingly before her like a key to her father's uncharted vision. "Are you sure?" David pressed, leaning slightly forward. "You seem a bit off." Laura straightened, realizing she had drifted mentally. "I have a lot on my mind." She swallowed hard, uncertainty cracking her composure. "I'm trying to figure out what it means, moving forward." David's gaze sharpened. "Moving forward together, I hope." The words themselves felt like a lifeline yet simultaneously chained her to expectations she feared she might not fulfill. The partnership she had begun to nurture with him could either blossom into success or dissolve into deeper shadows of mistrust through unforeseen revelations. Could she truly be transparent as Emma suggested? What if Laura's thoughts tumbled out? What if there's more at stake here than either of us realizes? David raised an eyebrow, curious but cautious, the very essence of their current reality colliding against the questions tugging at Laura's resolve. "Are you talking about the company?" Or he hesitated, watching her carefully. "Or something else?" Laura's breath hitched as she contemplated what Emma had said. She could either cling tightly to the past or take a leap into the legacy seeking to resurrect. "My father left behind more than just a business," she began, her voice steadying as she committed to the truth spilling from her thoughts. "There was a vision he had for something meaningful." David's expression shifted from concern to interest, and the weight of their shared responsibilities began to shape a framework for a more collaborative dialogue. "What are you saying?" "I met someone." The admission clawed its way out faster than she intended, but there was an urgency behind it, a need for solidarity in her newfound revelations. "She claims to have been close to my father, involved in his plans." David's eyes widened slightly, the silence stretching between them, filled with unspoken challenges and possibilities. "What does that mean for us?" Laura clenched her fists, grappling with the prospect of opening up fully. "It means I may need to reevaluate what we've built, what we're really doing. I can't ignore this. I want to face this unknown, not just for myself but to honor my father's legacy." The conversation hung heavy in the air, a tension brewing between aspiration and apprehension. David regarded her with an intensity that spoke of understanding but also concern. "Laura, whatever it is, we can handle it together." Could she afford to trust him completely while stepping into the unknown? Emma's warning echoed in the back of her mind. Time was indeed not on their side, and Emma held answers that could thrust Laura into a sphere she had never imagined entering. "I need to meet Emma again," Laura declared, her voice infused with a resolve she hadn't felt before. The adventure of self-discovery loomed dangerously yet tantalizingly ahead. I need to know what I'm stepping into. If this legacy is as profound as she says, then I can't turn away. As David nodded, entangled uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Would this decision fortify their partnership or shatter the fragile gains they had made? Laura grappled with her growing ambition and the shadows of the past. The path of reclamation ahead stretched vast and uncertain. What would emerge from the forthcoming encounter with Emma? Laura felt the pulse of destiny tightening around her, the door to her father's world creaking open slightly. But what lay inside revelation or ruin? She was about to find out. The rain drummed steadily against the cafe windows, creating a rhythmic backdrop that matched Laura's racing thoughts. Each droplet cascading down the glass seemed to reflect her conflicting emotions: fear, excitement, and an underlying determination. She looked away from David, grounding herself in the moment. Meetings with Emma were rarely straightforward. They often heralded significant change, and this time, the stakes felt particularly high. "I need to plan," she murmured, her voice barely rising above the sound of the rain. She could almost visualize a map of possibilities stretching before her. Each step in the process of understanding her father's legacy was both daunting and exhilarating. Laura needed clarity before she embarked on this journey. "Plan what exactly?" David asked, leaning back but remaining attentive, his brows knitted together in a mixture of concern and curiosity. "I need to approach this carefully. Emma isn't just a key, she's a whole new set of complications," Laura responded. The warding off of fear allowed her to cast aside insecurities temporarily. "What if this is bigger than just finding out what my father envisioned? What if it impacts everything, the company, us? Then we tackle it together. That's the deal." David's confidence was unwavering, but doubt crept into Laura's mind about whether she could rely on that assurance. Could her evolving ambitions mesh with their current partnership? The cafe's ambience shifted subtly, fellow patrons' conversations faded into the background, and the world reduced itself to just the two of them. Laura's thoughts spiraled inward, questioning her readiness to step into the role that loomed ahead. Would embracing her father's vision necessitate relinquishing aspects of her current life? Would she have to sacrifice the safety of their partnership in pursuit of something riskier, yet potentially transformative? In the hours that followed, she traced her fingers on the cafe table, contemplating every word that Emma had shared. A mysterious woman with ties to her father raised the stakes and prompted Laura to confront not only the external implications of unknown revelations but also an internal reckoning. Perhaps this journey could lead her to unearth capabilities she hadn't recognized, shoring up her self-doubt to reveal resilience. But was she prepared to face the truth, no matter how unruly it might be? "Laura, I know you're deeper in your head than you're showing right now. Whatever it is you're visualizing, you need to trust in yourself more than that," David said gently, affirming her internal battle. The moment seemed charged, batting away her hesitations but also laying bare her vulnerabilities. "I'm afraid of what I might discover," she admitted, glancing at the window, her insecurities reflected in the rain-smeared glass. "What if I'm not the person I thought I was?" David reached across the table, linking his fingers with hers. "Then you'll discover who you are meant to be." His words brought warmth but also an uneasy tightness in her chest. The thought of transformation loomed much larger than either of them anticipated. As they left the cafe, she apprehensively embraced the prospects of meeting Emma again. There was no going back now. She stood at the threshold of possibilities that provoked more than just excitement. Many of them triggered buried traumas and fears. The rain had slowed, but it dripped in a gentle chorus, echoing the knowledge that she was about to enter unknown territory. The moment Laura arrived at Emma's South meeting place, a dimly lit art studio brimming with remnants of inspiration, she felt the weight of both destiny and dread coiling within her. Emma's voice would soon fragment the numbing silence, drawing her into a world that might shatter her understanding of her father and herself alike. What truths awaited her within those walls? The air crackled with the anticipatory shimmer of impending revelation, setting the stage for a confrontation with her past unlike any other. Could this be the chance she had been waiting for, the pivotal moment that would define her and her legacy forever? The door loomed ahead, slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding. Laura took a deep breath, her heart pounding louder than ever. Would the revelations tonight bolster her transformation or reveal unsettling truths? Only time would answer as she took the next crucial step into the unknown. The room was dimly lit, canvases and shattered frames lining the walls, each whispering stories Laura yearned to uncover. She stepped inside, her heart racing, the remnants of her father's world waiting to unveil secrets long hidden. Emma stood amidst colorful chaos of splatters and strokes, her expression flitting between urgency and conviction. "Thank you for coming," Emma said, her voice carrying the weight of history. "We have much to discuss." Laura's pulse quickened. "About my father?" Emma nodded sharply, guiding her to a worn couch that felt as if it had absorbed countless ideas and dreams. "Your father was a visionary, Laura. But he was caught in a dangerous game. The plans he had were not just about the company. They were about change, real transformation." As Emma spoke, layers of doubt began to peel away, replaced by a burgeoning resolve. The legacy of fear that had once shackled Laura now seemed faint, displaced by ambition. "What do you mean by change?" His work was groundbreaking. He aimed to create something that threatened the established norms, Emma explained. But it's more than just inventions. He wanted to foster a movement and approach that integrated technology with ethics. Each word resonated deeply within Laura. She could see the vision board in her father's office, the dreams and aspirations he had etched out. The moment she had doubted, her path seemed to evaporate as clarity flooded in. This was her chance to embrace her father's legacy fully, not merely as an obligation but as a defining purpose. "What do I need to do?" Laura asked, her voice more a steady affirmation than a question. Emma smiled, sensing the shift. "You must prepare. There are key players who are still trying to suppress what your father initiated. We must rally those who can help amplify his vision." The enormity of the task blossomed in her mind like a vivid mural, a coalition with Emma at her side and David too, once merely an ally born of duty, now a potential partner in this burgeoning revolution. "Are you with me?" Emma's voice brought Laura back to the moment, and the gravity of the mission settled upon her. With renewed clarity, she nodded. She would not be suppressing doubt any longer. This was her path forward. With each conversation they shared, the walls of uncertainty crumbled further. Laura started mapping out strategies, channeling her father's innovative spirit while intertwining Emma's insights. As the dawn broke in the studio, the air thick with purpose, Laura felt a surge of confidence. She was no longer a bystander in her life's narrative. Days turned to weeks, each meeting solidifying her alliance with Emma and David. Together they built a vision not only to reclaim her father's legacy but to elevate it, transforming the very way the industry operated. Laura had become the architect of change, blending her creativity with Emma's embrace of ethical practices, redefining what it meant to innovate. At a recent conference, Laura stood at the forefront, unveiling their initiative, fueled by the fiery spirit her father had instilled in her. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation, faces filled with both skepticism and intrigue. Yet amid this crowd, she stood tall, her voice commanding. "Today, we shine a light on a path paved with integrity, ambition, and transparency. My father envisioned a future where technology served humanity, and I am here to ensure that vision thrives." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience, and she noted a shift, their skepticism wavering between curiosity and admiration. In the days that followed, recognition flowed abundantly. The media buzzed with reports of the conference, praising Laura's eloquence and intent. Industry leaders reached out, eager to align with her mission. The loudest applause came not from accolades but from within herself. Laura understood she had finally bridged the chasm of doubt that had once defined her. She had proven not only her father's vision but also the potential she harbored all along. Weeks later, a letter in her mailbox brought formal acknowledgement and award for innovation in ethical technology, honoring her efforts to merge legacy with progress. As she held the plaque, a wave of deep satisfaction surged through her, knowing she had transcended the limitations that once held her captive. from that rainy night filled with whispers in her apartment to the undeniable presence of purpose she felt now, Laura had transformed fear into an unyielding resolve. No longer did she travel under the heavy cloak of expectation. Instead, she strode into the future, shoulders back, every step echoing confidence and capability. In that moment of recognition, she understood this was just the beginning. And as the new projects unfolded and alliances strengthened, Laura was resolved. She would not abandon the lessons learned. Her father's vision, once a ghost of the past, had blossomed into a legacy that would proliferate for generations. She had conquered the shadows, emerged with clarity, and, more importantly, had become the embodiment of what it truly meant to lead with purpose. The story was no longer hers alone, it was a narrative equipped to carry forward into the future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly helps the content spread. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending, we want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for incredible transformational stories. Don't wait even one more second to share.